Let's see, Saturday, good effort by our guys. Um, Offensively, didn't pile up a ton of statistics, but we were effective in the red zone, 100% in the red zone, except for the last drive, which we weren't trying to score on that last drive, so really don't count that. So perfect in the red zone. Defensively, they were perfect in the red zone as well. I believe they were 0 for 3. Or no, more than that, 0 for 5, something like that. Anyways, a couple field goals, turnover, and a couple turnovers, and so a lot of good stuff. Run defense in the first half was not great, kind of soft, shored that up in the second half. Cam played exceptionally well. Clark obviously played exceptionally well. Was the Walter Camp Defensive Player of the Week in the nation, so that's a great honor for him. And like I said, Cam did a great job running the offense and was extremely accurate, took care of the football, 0 turnovers, 4 takeaways, and that really was the biggest stat in the game is a +4 turnover margin. But again, good win. Oregon State is a good football team, and our guys showed up and made a bunch of plays, and that was the result. So now we're getting ready to prepare for the Bruins road trip. They're playing extremely well, 5-0, playing with a lot of confidence. The quarterback is playing well, so it should be a good matchup. Great kickoff time. I think it's a 12:30 kick, and so should be, like I said, a good Pac-12 contest. Questions? What do you got?
In the back week, we started very cool offensively, and we have looked good in the first half. What is that? And what do you want to fix this?
Talking about not quite a fast enough start on offense. You always got something to complain about, Justin.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, the first series we had 4 3-and-outs in the game, which is too many. I think we only had 11 possessions. It's the possessions seem to get less and less. I mean, 20 years ago you get 15, 16 possessions a game, and now it's much less than that. But we did not start with the scoring drive initially, but then we got it in the end zone. I think we had 21 at half, and then put a few more points on the board in the second half. So we'd like, ideally, you'd like to start, with touchdown drive right out of the gate. That hasn't happened many times this season, but we'll keep working on it and trying to get better. But again, you judge the game in its entirety, not in segments, and so we just got to, try to manufacture or simulate starting fast in practice, and hopefully that carries over to the games.
Kyle, you've been very complimentary in the past of Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at film from 1 year to now, just what are you seeing?
You can see him getting better and better. I mean, he's playing his best football right now, as far as, from my vantage point. He's really, Chip has done a great job of developing him, and he is really, not that he was not good before, but he's really taken his game to another level, and seems to be very poised, makes plays, takes care of the ball, and again, he's a dual threat, which is the biggest issue for us, is his ability to run as well as throw the football. That's always a tough calling for your defensive coordinator, and a tough situation for your D when you've got a guy that can extend plays like he can.
How much does playing Florida's Richardson help you for UCLA's Thompson-Robinson?
That does help. They're similar as far as their style of play. The Arizona State's guy was pretty athletic as well. So we face some athletic quarterbacks this year, but that will be good preparation, and a lot of the things we learned in that game, hopefully we can apply to this game.
We saw 5 down D linemen a bunch against Oregon State. How'd that grade out? Will we see more of it?
Good. It went well for us. We did a little bit the game before as well against Arizona State, more so in this past game. And you wanted your best 11 out there, and we've got a defensive end group that we feel very good about. As we've mentioned before, we got 5 guys that are getting a lot of playing time, and it just makes you more stout up front when you have those 5 D linemen in there. And also, with the ability of Jonah Ellis and Connor O'Toole and those guys to cover tight ends on occasion when needed, that really gives you some flexibility. So that's something you'll continue to see, at least in the foreseeable future.
On the offensive line, you talked about maybe not getting enough push. How do you kind of work on that from a week-to-week basis, knowing that that's kind of the impetus to help the run game?
Yeah, well, first of all, Oregon State, their linebackers, I was very impressed with their linebackers. I think they're all conference guys. You know, those guys are active and tough. And really the problem that we had, not only not getting the push, as you mentioned, but as I talked about after the game, hitting the run-throughs. You know, they did a good job of triggering and run through their gaps, and our eyes weren't in the right spot and not able to pick up those run-throughs. And so we got to do a better job coaching it and preparing our guys for that. But you know, knocking people off the ball is really where it starts. That's the essence of having a physical offensive line, is be able to knock people off the ball in the run game. And we just, for whatever reason, are not living up to our potential in that area, I think. So we got to just keep working on it. And you know, everything's a work in progress, but that in particular right now.
Was last week the best week from your wide receiving group? We talked about the need for them to emerge with Keithy out, and it seemed like they did.
Yeah, I would say without a doubt, excuse me, that they picked up the slack. Money Parks made some plays. Jalen Dixon only had 2 touches, but 2 touchdowns. Devon Bailey had a big game, 7 catches, almost 100 yards. And so, yeah, the short answer is they did a good job of picking up that slack. We need to get Dalton Kincaid some more targets. I think he only had 3 catches, and that's underutilization of him. He's a tremendous player, and so we'll get him more involved.
Was that a result of what they were doing defensively? Because the week prior against USC, they were just taking away USC's best options for especially the first half. Did they do that with Dalton?
Nothing special. You know, we just got to target him more and make him a little more featured in the offense. And they didn't have any real defense or structure that they hadn't shown before.
Kyle, when Jalen Dixon came to you, said that he wanted to come back. What was that conversation like? Like, what did you need to hear from him?
Well, needed to hear that he was all in and that he had got himself together and was in a good place from a mental standpoint, and that it wasn't just by default that he had nothing else, you know, going. You know, I needed to know that he was just sincerely and genuinely wanting to be a part of this football team and be a guy that would come in and be a great teammate, do whatever he's asked to do, and play his role to the utmost of his ability, and that's what he expressed to me.
Had you ever encountered a situation where a guy hit the portal or a guy told you he was leaving and then wanted to come back? Had that ever come across?
Once or twice, I'm sure it has. I think Jalen might be the only guy that actually came back once he was in the portal. I can't say for certain. I'd have to, you know, recollect and go through it all. But that's a very unique situation and something that you know, we don't, you know, just our policy is if you go in the portal, you're pretty much moving on.
You gave a lot of different running backs carries. It didn't seem like you really settled on any one. And you've talked about the offensive line problems, but is there something the backs can do to help? Is there something you were looking for from them?
I think the backs did a pretty good job of taking what was there. You know, great backs, when there's nothing there, they still make 3 yards. I mean, that's the distinction of a great running back, is to be able to make more than what's blocked. But the main problem was just people in our backfield. You know, like I said, whether it was a linebacker triggering or a defensive lineman slanting and popping through, that was the main issue. But yeah, I mean, everyone can always do better and be more effective. Cam was our best rusher on Saturday. I mean, that was very evident. He went for 75 yards and made some really big plays with his legs for us. And that's the advantage of a dual threat guy. Cam is a dual threat and faster than people think, and he's deceptively fast. And I don't think people, you know, until they play against him, don't grasp that.
Following up on that, it seems like Mekhi Bernard has been your most consistent and productive back. Is there a goal to get him more?
Yeah, we like to get Mekhi involved as much as we can. He's been a little banged up, hasn't been 100%, but he's a courageous kid, and he's been out there, and you're right, he has been our most consistent back, and he's our best pass protector, and catches the ball out of the backfield the very best of all the backs. So he brings a lot to the table, and we'll continue to have him play a prominent role in the offense.
Can you expand on, give some insight on like how the offense had to adjust in the absence of Brand? I know obviously the tight end room is still solid, but that's a guy who does a lot right in the backfield sometimes. Jet sweeps you use with him. Jalen, Mackay, all those guys that are playing a part, but how do you feel the offense adjusted to his absence?
Pretty good. I think we, like I said, made a concerted effort with a number of guys to pick up that slack. Our personnel groups reflected that as well. We were in far less multiple tight end sets than we had been all season prior with Brant. And the lead set last week was 11 personnel, which is a one tight end set. But Thomas Yasmin came in and contributed a little bit. Munir McLean made a nice catch and run after catch. And, Logan, God, what's Logan's last? Kendall, yeah, Logan. I always get confused because he's got two first names. So Logan Kendall, yeah, nothing wrong with that, I guess. Yeah, does the dirty work. He doesn't get a lot of catches, but he is a very efficient blocker and does a lot for us in that capacity.
Is Tavion making the steps necessary to help him get back on the field more?
Yep, so far he's been on track, and barring any setbacks this week, you should see him more and more as the weeks go on. And again, barring setbacks, you got to be consistent and you got to be accountable.
Kyle, you said a number of times that you prefer day games versus night games. I'm curious why that is.
Just because I hate sitting around all day waiting to play. I mean, you want to go out and compete, and it's no fun just sitting around for 10 hours, 12 hours waiting for kickoff. And as a player, I felt the same way. You want to get out there and get playing as soon as you can, and no different as a coach. To add on to that, road games that are real late, you get home 4 or 5 in the morning. I mean, that's miserable for the players, and they're trying to recover and get ready for the next week, and to get a horrible night's sleep because of when you're getting home, that takes its toll on them. And as coaches, we can work on the plane. Going home, we got the computers and everything, so it doesn't affect us as much. But much rather see the players get home, 7 or 8 at night rather than 4 in the morning.
Just to follow that up, does preparation change at all? When it's a noon game versus an 8 game, obviously there's 8 more hours to prep.
Yeah, no, it doesn't change our routine other than we get them up in the morning to get used to having the pregame meal time that's going to be on Saturday, ingesting food in the morning. Our sports scientists say that's a good idea, so we go ahead and follow that recommendation. But as far as our practice routine, our number of periods, the time of day that we practice, meetings, all that remains consistent.
Is Charbonneau going to be the best running back you faced this year?
One of the best for certain. He's really good, and he's a big, strong back, good vision. He's got some speed to him. He's tough, so yeah, he's going to be, if not the best, certainly one of the best that we've come across this year.
College football season moves very quickly. We're in week 6 now. How would you assess your team's performance as a whole in this point?
I think we've gotten better each week since week 1. We've talked about that plenty, that we didn't play our best football in week 1, but since then, I think we've taken a step forward every single week. This past week included, obviously. And if you want to try to win a championship, that's got to happen. You got to be able to be on that upward trajectory from game 1 to game 12.
You mentioned Clark Phillips had a huge day, and after the game he talked about how that was a result of coaching and film study and all that. Now you're facing a 5th-year starter in DTR. Is it markedly harder to recognize tendencies with Chip and DTR rather than what you guys saw last week?
I wouldn't say so. I think if you do your film study, every team is they got their core offense and what they do from week to week, and there'll be a few new wrinkles here and there, but everybody has got enough in their core that if you study film enough and you watch enough film, you're going to get a great feel for it and anticipating plays before, just by looking at the sets and the field position and the down and distance. It's all in the equation, and the more film you study, the more familiar you get with what you're going to face, and the game slows way down when you study film. Things become much more, it's easier to make plays, and Clark is a great film study guy, and that showed up obviously on Saturday.
How did Mo Diabate grade out in his return?
Okay, not as well as he can play. You know, he was rusty, but and he was a little bit out of shape. That's to be expected with his downtime. He wasn't able to do a whole lot when he was on the shelf, but he did make some really nice plays, and we expect him to keep getting up to speed. And I'm sure he'll be a lot more effective this week than he was last week. Now, he didn't play bad. He just didn't play as good as his capabilities.
We've had two Pac-12 coaches now fired in season. I'm curious if you had any thoughts, not necessarily on guys getting fired, but specifically the decision to do it in the middle of the season.
Well, when the signing day got moved up, that was one of the things that was kind of, I don't want to say predicted to happen, but could happen, because you can't. It's all about recruiting, and if you wait until the 11th hour to fire a guy, and you got signing day coming up 2 or 3 weeks later, I mean, that puts you in a spot. And so I think that's really the main impetus for early dismissals is to try to get, well, twofold. Number one, the recruiting, and secondly, to start your search right away and be able to, you know, maybe beat someone to the punch on a guy that might be available. And so I think that's the reason for it. And I don't think it's going to change. I mean, there's no, you know, I don't think we're going to go backwards on that. I think it's going to continue to be just a callous, you know, cold-blooded deal. But you make enough money where they expect things, and you got to produce. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast.
The ripple effect, do you have conversations with your coaching staff about, like, you know, whether people are interested in, you know, upward mobility, maybe being the position coach to a coordinator when somebody else gets those jobs? I mean, it seems like every time a Pac-12 job, you know, opens and then somebody else gets hired, somebody from other staffs ends up, you know, potentially moving. Do you have conversations with your staff at this point?
No, nothing, zero during the season. It's all focused on what we got, you know, the task at hand. That's an off-season discussion, and really in June, you know, when I have exit interviews with all my coaches each year, evaluations, however you want to term it, and that's part of the conversation is their goals and desires, and what they, you know, where do they see themselves 3, 5, 10 years from now, and you know, because if I know I can, you know, help them any way I can, but during the season it's just focused on task at hand, and there is no conversation about any of that stuff.
Similarly, Paul Christ was fired at Wisconsin with the 72% winning percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Is it enough to just win these days, or is that more about playing up to expectations consistently?
Well, I think it's both. You know, expectations at certain schools are certainly higher than at other schools, and so it's a relative situation. But you're right, 72% is pretty darn good. I mean, that's you know, a lot of coaches would love to have a winning percentage like that, and so you know, it's just a matter of like I said, it's instant gratification, win now mentality, and that's just, and it's not going to change. I mean, that's just how it is. Okay, laptops are shutting. We're ready to roll.